Hey there, welcome. Question, do you own a camera? Then this video might just be for you. Today, I'm going to talk all about how you can create the sharpest possible image, like this one that we're going to create. How you can do it using the camera that you have today. And that's through a method called focus stacking. Now, like I said, if you own a camera at all, then this video is for you. But in particular, I'm going to be using the Sony A7R V, which, finally added a focus bracketing feature to the camera. So if you've got a camera that has autofocus bracketing, we're going to walk through that as well. So what's the best possible way to get an extremely sharp photo? Well, it might just be focus stacking. And in particular, focus stacking at your lens's sweet spot. Now, lenses inherently have sweet spots. It's usually 2 to 3 stops down from the maximum aperture. And this is where your lens is going to perform at its absolute sharpest. The problem with the sweet spot is it's usually not got enough depth of field to be able to capture an entire scene. And that's where focus stacking comes in. So focus stacking is where we actually take several different images, capturing each part of a scene in focus, and then compositing all those images together to create one really sharp, really in focus image. I played around a little bit with this with the Sony A7R V in a previous video I did, capturing Big Bend, which has some excellent photos in it. I definitely suggest you check it out after this one. So how do we do this? Well, first find your lens's sweet spot. Again, usually 2 to 3 stops down from your maximum aperture. So an f1.4 lens is going to be something like f2.8 or f3.5. An f2.8 lens, it's going to be something like f5.6 down to f7. You can also Google it. Most lenses are going to have some blog out there that talks about where they perform at their best. Second, frame up your shot on a tripod. It's important to have a tripod here because you want to have each shot consistent in terms of framing. So frame things up, lock your tripod down. Now we actually get to focus stack. Now the way to capture focus stacking manually is to progressively move your focus from the front of the image all the way to the back of the image, capturing a photo at each spot in between, making sure that somewhere along the way, you've got a photo of everything in focus. Now with cameras like the A7R V, or probably most modern cameras nowadays, you'll have something like an autofocus bracketing mode or focus stacking mode. And this is great because on the A7R V here, I can set this up to take 75 different photos, incrementally moving the focus point from the front to the back without having to do anything other than click go. So the key here is to make sure the settings are set up right. So to get these settings set up, you're going to jump into your shooting menu, drive mode, bracket settings, and then you'll see focus bracket settings. Now, once you get to these, there's a few things you can set up. You really don't have to modify much, but the first one here, the focus bracket order, I find helpful to set to 0 to plus. And what that means is you focus on the nearest element to you, and the camera will automatically capture everything forward of that. You can also set up some helpful things like a new folder, so it makes life a little easier to sort. There are 2 other settings that you need to deal with. Make sure that you have enough photos and that it's going to be shifting in narrow enough increments. So in this case, I'm doing a macro photo, so I've got it adjusted towards the narrow end. And then I'm taking 75 photos because I expect it'll take quite a bit to get there. Important to note, if you do this, you can actually set the number of shots up, and if it doesn't need that many shots, it will stop itself. Once we have the photos, we need to process them to stack them together. And this is generally pretty easy. I've used Photoshop to do it before, and it usually works well, but then there's some other great software providers that will help you get there a little bit better if you're running into issues with Photoshop. In Photoshop, we just go to File, Scripts, load files into stack, and then make sure you click the checkbox for automatically attempting to align the photos. What this does is if you have any focus breathing, so where your frame changes as your focus shifts, this will help to align the images perfectly so that they can stack after that. Once that's done, we're going to click all of the layers, hit edit, auto blend layers, and then stack images. You can also click the checkbox to seamlessly blend colors and tones. Boom, hopefully that worked. Now, this is where I've had some issues before. Sometimes Photoshop just doesn't do a perfect job and doesn't blend them perfectly. So you'll get areas where clearly things are out of focus. Now you can go in and manually adjust all of these areas by masking out or masking in those specific error issues, but it's kind of a painful way to do it. So I also downloaded Helicon Focus and found that it actually worked a lot better than Photoshop for the most part in stacking images. Very similar user face. I just dragged all of the photos in, and then I actually just automatically hit render. Everything worked out, and then save. They've got a lot of other parameters, I think, but I don't even need to play with them to get some good images. And then admire your image. Now this is really cool because with focus stacking, you can create an image that's just so much sharper than you could otherwise. Number one, because you're doing it at your lens's sweet spot, but then secondly, because a lot of times it's just hard to capture all that depth in a single photo if you're just stopping down the lens, for instance. So here's an example where I actually took some of the same photos by stopping down my lens to something like f/22 to try to capture it. And you can see the comparison between the focus stacked image. The focus stacked image just looks a lot better, and that for the most part has to do with diffraction. At f/22, my lens just can't perform as well as it does at f/5.6. So it's not going to be nearly as sharp. And then also, it's still not enough depth of field to be able to capture the full image. So the focus stacking just allows me to get more in focus. But when should you actually use focus stacking? I think there's two good instances, and that's with landscapes where you want to capture a lot of depth and you have something in the foreground and the background that you just need in focus, and then potentially macro photography. But for the most part, I don't find it all that worth it. It's a lot of extra work to be able to capture things where you probably can get the depth of field that you want in camera in one photo anyway. And then I've also had a fair amount of trouble often with using these programs. The Photoshop just doesn't always seem to get it right. And then Helicon Focus would be another software that I'd have to purchase. It seems to work great, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, I find it a bit excessive. I think it's super handy to know this trick because there are times where it just can create a remarkable image. So I hope this is something that's helpful for you. I want to hear, have you used focus stacking in the past? What sort of issues do you run into? Where's it worked best for you? If you like this video, please do like and subscribe. Thanks.